I said sit down and shut up.
That's right. Sit down and shut the fuck up. You're listening to us now, Deviants. Welcome to episode 6 of the Deviant podcast. My name is Joe Bodie. I'm one half of the Deviant podcast equation. I'm here with my co-host, my cohort, my partner in crime, Joe Mancini.
Hi, I'm Joe Mancini. Welcome to the Devil's episode 6.
The Devil's episode 6. This is our second take at episode 6 because last time, one of the Joes, I don't want to point too many fingers. I don't want to call anyone out. It was me. Showed up a little too drunk, and we weren't entirely happy with the episode. So we're gonna redo it to bring you the biggest quality, the best quality that we possibly can. But Joe Mancini wanted to go forward with the episode, so apparently blackout drunk Joe Bodie is still deviant and still hilarious and still. I don't know.
You did good. I'm just going to say the viewers are missing out.
The viewers are missing out.
It's a great It'll be a great outtake someday.
We'll save it. We'll post it. We'll post it after this one, maybe. Yeah. If you want to go back and watch that one. If you want to go back and watch blackout drunk me.
Our Patreon contributors can earn it.
Can earn it.
Yeah, for a healthy sum of money.
There you go. I'm thinking $5,000. I'm thinking it's
Fair.
like P. I'm thinking P-tape money. I want Stormy Daniels money. That's what I want. I want Stormy Daniels money for the blackout TV tape because my reputation matters. You know what? Fuck up. My reputation matters as much as hers does. She's a fucking porn star. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, that being said, we're happy to be at episode 6. Happy to be reshooting it. With us with me in a better state.
Me in a worse state.
and Joe in a worse state. So maybe we'll have a repeat. Who knows? So a little bit about Deviant Podcast. If you're tuning in for the first time, if you want to know a little bit about us, it's a podcast we like to say was born of a bar. Joe and I would have great conversations and great bars in San Francisco. And we just thought we had unique opinions. We thought we had, unique, underrepresented opinions. Very logical, very cogent things to say about shit that was it was bullshit. We were tired of all the bullshit, basically. That's how it was born of a bar. We were tired of all the bullshit. We wanted to bring it to a podcast, and we figured that we'd make this podcast. And this podcast is basically, think about it like if you have a debate, we are one half of the debate. We are the first half of the debate. The second half of the debate is our listeners. We want feedback. But we're going to give you our opening statement, our position, whatever. We're one half of the debate. The other half of the debate is you guys. You guys chime in, debate us, tell us where we're wrong, tell us where we fucked up. We try very hard to treat the shit rationally. But sometimes maybe we miss the mark. That's going to happen, you know? But yeah, this podcast is like a very rare situation wherein you have a very rational, logical, down-to-earth conversation in a bar. And that happens so rarely, we thought we would try to bring it to you every fucking week. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And we want you guys to push back at us if you think we're wrong. We're trying to build a community. The other part of that is we will always treat you with respect and dignity. We're not going to fucking Fox News you. We're not going to Sean Hannity you or Tucker Carlson. That's the new guy. We're not going to do that shit to you. We're not going to. We will treat your position with respect, and we will talk to you like a fucking human being because that's what we think is missing these days. Fucking human, rational fucking conversations about shit. Right? Yeah. I think that's pretty much it as far as an introduction. We used to have a disclaimer. We don't have a disclaimer anymore. I'm going to stop saying we used to have a disclaimer. This is the last episode. This is the last episode that I'm even going to bring up the fact that we used to have a disclaimer. That's how little shits I give about the fact that we used to have a disclaimer. I don't care. We used to have one. We don't. Fuck you if you need one. Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? Fuck you. Moving on. If you need a disclaimer, this is the wrong fucking podcast. Period. Done. Right?
Yeah. That's
all right.
Fair to say.
You feel like that's fair? That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the last time I'm ever going to mention it. You've listened to episode 7. If you've listened to all 6 before and you listen to episode 7, you're not going to hear it. I promise. I'm never going to mention another disclaimer ever again. It's fucking done. I don't want to
wiping our browser history.
We are clearing our fucking history. Clearing all cookies. All cookies are fucking, they're burnt. They're burnt.
They're in the trash.
They're in the trash, god damn it. So, Born of a Bar, first part of the debate. Let's fucking go, Deviants. Let's get right into it. Let's not waste any more of your time.
Let's waste slightly more time just to say that we have a few slogans here. The first part of the conversation is a great way of summing what Deviant is about, but there's another key one that we cannot keep going without saying. We don't care about social currency. We don't care about what's trending. Cogency is the only currency.
Thank you, Joe. I forgot in my rant, I left out our fucking motto. It's on our Twitter page and everything.
It's a great motto.
Cogency is the only currency. You're right. If your argument is political or politically trending, it's social justice warriors love it and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. We don't have a problem with that. As long as your argument is cogent, as long as it makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's stupid, if it's dumb, if you need to go fuck off, we'll tell you to fuck off. If your argument is not cogent, it doesn't matter. Cogency is the only currency. Thank you, Joe Mancini. You're right. That's our main slogan. I was about to move on without it. Cogency is the only currency. That's the only thing we fucking care about, just looking at things rationally. And that plays into everything else that I did say. That's why we're not going to Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson you
exactly.
Bill O'Reilly. That's why we're not going to do those things. Yeah. I mean, if you're an asshole, I'll call you an asshole.
Oh, yeah, that's fair game.
That's fair game.
Yeah. This is not, you don't get to be protected here on these grounds, on our turf.
Yeah, it's not a safe
deviant
space.
turf.
There's no safe space here. No, it's a war zone. No,
There's
there's friendly fire.
Yeah,
there's potential for friendly fire on the TV podcast. I'm going to go
very
and
much.
say that. There's very much potential for friendly fire. So, with that in mind, because I think there might be some friendly fire on this episode for sure, man.
Oh, man.
Let's go ahead and move on into episode 6. One episode after Joe Mancini's lucky number. 6 is my don't give a shit number, so whatever. This episode is entitled In Defense of Suicide. So, yeah, strap yourselves in.
That's a little taste of what you've got coming up.
Yeah. We're going to talk about some deviant shit there. We're going to have some opinions. We're going to have some listener opinions and listeners weighing in on it. But, yeah, episode 6, In Defense of Suicide. Let's go. What do you got, Joe?
All right. Yeah, episode 6. So this is not for the faint of heart. This is no. It is. You can still listen if you're faint of heart. It's okay. Yeah. Last week was Oscars. This week, suicide. So we
went from sensational to we went from like totally empty, not just boisterous display of whatever to very serious, somber. I'm putting on my somber face now.
Yeah, me too.
Both of us are.
I'm gonna hide it behind the pop filter here.
But we're not, because
not at all.
Not at all. All right.
Wouldn't be deviant without it.
Exactly.
So, suicide in the U.S. It is definitely an issue. You could put it up there with well, because of the mental health implications, you could put it up there with mass shootings and many other depressing things going on right now. It is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S., which is saying something. Yeah.
Okay, that's higher than I would have thought. But
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. About 45,000 people, Americans, die by suicide every year, and for every
these are all self-inflicted, right?
yeah.
Sorry, bad joke.
Okay. For a second, I was like, "What the fuck is he?"
You were like, "What the fuck?" Of course they are, Joe. Yeah.
That's actually
that was
in hindsight, that's pretty funny, actually.
Okay, keep moving on.
So to keep up with the crazy numbers here, so keep in mind 45,000 Americans die by suicide each year, and for every
suicide, yeah,
exactly, and for every suicide, there's 25 attempts. So that you can imagine. I mean, when you factor that in, the numbers are racking up here. People who intend to end their own lives.
Yeah, if you factor the attempts.
Yeah, which I think is, they're not suicides. Thankfully, these people aren't dying. Although an attempt kind of implies that they try again, and so that's definitely saying something.
But so if you look at suicide as a national issue, national problem, or debate number, what was it was 45,000 actual deaths, right?
Right, each year,
self-inflicted deaths, each year. But then there's 25
attempts for every suicide.
25 attempts for every suicide. So you have to multiply 45,000 by 25
exactly
to get the number of people that have attempted suicide, which is
about a million, 1,125,000.
Yeah, and I think attempted is. I'm not saying it's just as important, but it's an important number to factor in as well.
I think so. I mean, when we're talking about suicides, we're talking just the concept of it. In my opinion, means that attempts are
just as
that
valid.
Says something.
Yeah, just as valid.
Totally,
absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about demographics here, because I think we're all interested in who is killing themselves in the U.S. White males account for 7 out of 10 suicides. This is these numbers are from 2016. 70% of suicides are white males, and the rate is highest. Sorry, let me backtrack. White males accounted for 70% of suicides in 2016, and they die by suicide about 3.5 times more often than women.
Oh wow!
So it is a distinctly male problem. Yeah. Then the rate of suicide is highest in middle age, in white men in particular. So
middle-aged white men, yeah. Is there? Do you have is there an income breakdown for that?
That's great.
If you don't have it, that's question. Fine. But it's middle. I would hazard a guess. I would hazard a guess that it's middle-aged, middle to lower middle class white men, and on down. It's probably all like middle class is probably the highest income bracket there. It has to be.
That's a great question. So I looked it up because I'm very interested in.
Because it's a great question. Yeah. Because these are the questions non-blackout drunk Joe asked.
Despite preconceptions that suicide is more prevalent in high-income countries, in reality, 75% of suicides occur in low and middle-income countries. Okay, well, that's more about countries. I want to know about Americans. Yeah.
I would imagine the same is. I would imagine it's true. We can look it up afterwards, or you Deviant followers can tweet us the number. Please tweet us the numbers. Please tweet us whatever research you have about this. To show us that or just to not make us ignorant. Just tweet it to us. That's fine.
I'm going to try to confirm it by the end here. I think it's something interesting.
Try to confirm, but let's move on for right now.
Let's move on.
Let's move on for right now.
Yeah. Let's see. So we're talking about demographics, and there was one more thing I wanted to say. Okay, so these numbers, by the way, break down to 123 suicides per day.
Oh wow,
which is
that's a lot.
crazy, just in
And
one
per
country.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Firearms account for 51% of them.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there because it's topical. Yeah, and by the way, middle
Yeah, but
age.
they're handguns. They're not assault rifles. No
Right.
one's shooting himself in the face with an assault rifle.
Middle age, by the way, is defined as between 45 and 54 years of age.
Okay.
Just so we have that as something to consider.
Yeah. Just so we have the statistic.
Yeah. And if you go on the I'm getting a lot of these numbers from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and they have a very interesting map that breaks it down by state. So it's something that I recommend exploring it.
Yeah. So if you're interested or just have a macabre sense of curiosity like we do,
Exactly.
go check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a problem within certain certain demographics. It's a problem in general, I guess, or I don't even want to say problem. It's a thing that happens within certain demographics, within all demographics, but whatever. We can break down the numbers, but there's a stigma. Yeah. There's a stigma to suicide, right, Joe?
There is.
There is.
And that's why why are people doing it? Why is it so prevalent? Is so, intriguing. It's just one of those things that's very hard to deduce.
Yeah. And I think the stigma is the stigmatization of it, the why of it is one of the things I definitely want to talk about in this episode. I guess let's move on to what I think is the least controversial, the least debatable, almost unassailable position on suicide.
Yeah. Because this is huge when we're talking
legally, and this is huge. So we're going to go into a very not unassailable, not indefensible, not whatever. But I think first and foremost, when you talk about this, and I tweeted about it, and I was trying to get opinions on it, but when you talk about it in defensive suicide, I feel like we do have to give we do have to give some space to the the right to die movement, and with Oregon and Washington have legalized that. I think that those are the only two states. More states might be jumping on that. If you could look that up while I'm ranting, Joe, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
to see if anyone else has done it. So the responses that we got on Twitter and a couple people hit us up on Facebook Messenger, and there was overwhelming 100% support of the right to die movement, and everyone seems to have and views this as like an indefensible position. If you have an inoperable cancer or whatever the fuck, Alzheimer's, you have a debilitating disease that is crippling your quality of life, then you should have the right to die with dignity, the right to get basically cyanide capsules or whatever the fuck the pharmacy prescribes. But you should have the right to go to the pharmacy, get drugs, kill yourself at a predetermined date with your friends and family all around you. And, and there's a really great documentary about this too. So I think that's per our followers, our listener responses, they all agreed, like 100% agreed. The right to die, they were like, yes, no question. And my thing is, the only argument put forth against the right to die movement is a religious argument. People say, oh, well, you have this disease, and I know you're dying, and there's no medical cure. There's no human medical cure, but you should wait for a fucking miracle. You gotta wait. You gotta trust in God and wait for the miracle. You gotta sit there and slowly die for fucking 6 months, 8 months while you wait for God to miraculously, on the fucking off chance. God hasn't performed a miracle since the, you know, since Lazarus. Since Lazarus. It's been 2,000 years, no miracle, but you should wait. You should wait, because maybe you're the next fucking Lazarus. Maybe you're the next fucking miracle. You should wait and not kill yourself, because maybe God will deign to save you. That's the only argument against this. And it's a total crock of shit. It's a total fucking crock of shit, in my opinion. So I think the right to die, if you want to push back, if you can push back, Joe, go ahead. If you can think of a good counter argument other than a religious argument, go for it. But I think that's the only argument against letting people die with dignity when they have these fucking, inoperable cancers or whatever the fuck.
I think so.
They just want to die peacefully in their homes, right?
I think it's definitely true to say that that's the most common argument against it. The only other thing, well, first I want to clear something up.
Okay.
I looked this up. The biggest misconception is that a person takes a pill, is prescribed a pill for doctors, assisted suicide. In reality, it's a high dosage of barbiturates, sedatives. That is. They
OD basically.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's not. It doesn't affect the principle of anything we're talking about tonight. It's just it helps paint a picture of how these people are dying. Going back to what you're saying, the only other thing I can think of right now, and this is just off the top of my head, that anyone would be concerned about terminally ill assisted suicide would be liability. And does it create a litigious environment about who's liable? And that's not a principled argument against it. It's just I could see people saying, oh, here's the complications with this. It's not
well, you can't have family members. The person choosing the right to die has to be in their right mind. Yeah, they can't have. Yeah, I don't think Alzheimer's doesn't qualify for that. Under state laws, it's got to be cancer and stuff. I think I mistakenly used Alzheimer's as an example, but the person choosing to ingest these drugs to proactively kill themselves, they have to be of a sound mind and body. Yeah, they can't be. Yeah. So and that kind of that kind of eliminates you can't have some you can't have a some stereotypical 80s movie comedy script where they're all waiting for for horrible Uncle Joe to die because he's got all this money and and then people just sign his death warrant to kill him. You know what I mean?
No. My point is that I could see this being again, it's not an argument against it. I could just see, it's like when executioners firing squads. It's somebody always has, a blank or whatever, so no one's so that the death can't be attributed to any one person in particular. I could see that being the only complication I can think of when it comes to physician-assisted suicide is the bearing of responsibility. Again, I don't think that's an argument against it. It's just
it's a litigious thing you have to be litigious. It's a litigious thing you have to be worried about. I see what you're saying.
But we're talking about principle here. We're talking about the principle of it.
That's a litigious thing you have to be worried about. I see what you're saying. There was always a blank in the firing squad, or previously with the they don't even do it. And with lethal injections and electric chairs, they used to have dummy switches and shit, so that the guards didn't know whether or not they killed the man,
right?
So they could go home and sleep at night because I didn't pull the switch, kind of thing, So there's always those litigious or sort of moral safeguards, I guess, in case someone feels wrong about it. But
ultimately, it is catching favor, and I hope this is going to go the way of legal marijuana, and I hope that someday the fucking death penalty is going to follow this. Yeah, that's a whole other episode. But
That's a whole.
Um,
Death penalty.
but five
Death penalty
states
will be an episode. It's gonna be a whole different episode. But
Yeah.
no,
5 states
look,
are have now legalized physician
states.
assisted suicide. Yeah, California. So I didn't know this. California, Colorado, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington.
good for them, man. Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
I say
so
fuck
it's-
yeah.
it's
I say
catching
good
on.
for them. Look, if you're in that position, if you're dying a horrible fucking death, I watched this documentary, and there was this one lady. She had it was some sort of cancer, man. But her fucking towards the end of it, her body was filling with fluids. Part of the and she was swole up, man. It was so painful, dude, and it was untreatable. There was nothing she could fucking do. So heartbreaking. But her fucking funeral, I cried. It was so beautiful, man. Her family was there. She was ready, and she was like, but at the beginning of the documentary, she was like flat stomached. I'm not going to say she was a model, but she was flat stomached. She looked like a 50-year-old mom, like what you would expect walking around, whatever. By the end of it, she looked like Jabba the Hutt, dude. That's how full of fluid she was. That's how in pain she fucking was.
Yeah.
She was ready to die. She was so ready to fucking go, dude. And all her family came around. So it was beautiful, man. And my thing is, she got to die with dignity. She didn't have to ride that pain out. Her family didn't have to fucking see her, keep dealing with this pain and going to the hospital, whatever. She took a couple pills in her house. She said her piece, and in 20 minutes she was dead. And this sounds morbid as fuck, but it was beautiful as shit. I loved it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. It was great, man. So again,
what's this documentary?
I don't remember. It came out right around the time that Oregon. It was all about people in Oregon. So it was Oregon was the first state to like actually maybe not the first state to legalize it, but the first state to implement it. So they had it had death in the title. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was on Netflix. It probably still is. If you can find it, we'll tweet it out later. It's a good one.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out as a supplementary reading for our listeners.
I'll find it and I'll tweet it out as a supplemental viewing for this episode. My point being though, I really think the only valid argument against right to die shit is, or not even only valid, the only argument which is not valid is a religious one. Is people saying this woman should have waited for a miracle. And if you watch this woman blow up from like fucking Farrah Fawcett to Jabba the Hutt because of fluid in her lungs and whatever, because of the disease she had. If you watched her blow up like that, you would. If you as a good Christian can sit there and say, just wait for God will save you of it, and you can feel good about that, then fuck you. Your heart, like, that's fucked up.
Right.
This woman deserved to die with dignity. She deserved to take her own life and just call it quits. But again, the only arguments against this stuff is that argument. Wait for a miracle. Wait for God. You don't have. It's a religious argument against taking your own life.
Yeah, yeah.
And most people, most of the responses we got on Twitter again seem to agree with us on that. So maybe we should move on to the more controversial, more deviant part.
Let's do it.
Of this episode, wherein this Joe is going to say the majority of suicide is defensible.
He said it.
I said it. I'm going to stand by it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's delve in. Let's just dive right into this.
Why not? Why not?
Let's start with who are we talking about here? Let's define who these people are that
In
are
my
killing
opinion?
themselves.
Oh, who like the defensible suicides?
They're not terminally ill.
Not terminally ill. Not teenagers. Not young. Not young adults.
Mm-hmm.
I think the defensible suicides to me are. I mean, it's hard to put an exact age range on
Sure.
it, but adults, I would say anywhere. I'd say 30 plus. I'm going to say 30 plus. But I'm not advocating. Yeah, not advocating for. Well, terminally ill. I'm obviously advocating for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying teens should kill themselves.
Right.
I'm saying adults with a rational sort of mind
Mm-hmm.
we had no free agency in being born. We had no choice in that. We had no choice to be born. We had no free agency in doing it. At a certain point, if it's rational, if it's reasonable, you have every agency to take yourself out of this. You had no free agency in coming into this. At a certain point, if you want to take yourself out of this, my position is there is a certain point. There is a time and a place and an age where that can be reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the prevailing view is that suicide is always a tragedy and always always a horrendous thing and always torturous for the loved ones and always blah blah
Selfish.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Always selfish.
That's
exactly.
a huge word here.
That's a huge word. Yeah, and always selfish for sure. And my point is no. I think at a certain time and age, it can be none of those things. It can be a completely again, it's the free agency of that person to do it. To say, look, I'm done. I'm done. I've had enough. I've lived a great life. I don't want to spend the next 30 years in a retirement home or whatever. I don't want to spend the next 30 years doing blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
I'd rather just go out now. And I think it's their choice. And I don't think it's tragic. And I don't think it's selfish. I don't think it's a mental health issue in those cases. I think at some point it can be a very rational fucking decision.
Yeah. So, as we know, these people are the if we're talking 30 and up, these are the people who are committing the most suicide in the U.S.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, we're not going to, I think a little speculation is due, but we're not going to answer this. But there's a huge question of why. There's economic implications. There's mental illness is obviously, what is that, like 90% of suicides have to do with
I'm sure.
depression and mental illness. So,
well, I'm gonna. Okay, here's another deviant thought I hadn't.
Yeah, pile it on.
I didn't think of before in our pre-show planning. Isn't the fucking mental health registry? Isn't the fucking like American Psychiatric Association like? Aren't they gonna say that 99% of suicides are due to a mental health issue? Like, what other position would they have? They're not going to say, like, this suicide was due to happiness and a well-adjusted life. And
right.
They're going to say this suicide is due to a mental health issue. They're not going. So
but circumstantial.
This sounds really fucked up, but bear with me. But I think there's some bias in them reporting on those numbers because, of course, they're going to say the person that committed suicide wasn't well adjusted.
Yeah.
It's a sort of self-serving thing. Like,
right. Well, how can you
do you
work
see what I'm
around
saying?
it?
Like,
I mean,
Yeah.
If you lose all your money,
By definition, that's like saying like 99% of murders are homicides. 1% of them may be manslaughters or blah blah blah, but like them, 90%. By definition, murders are homicides. By definition, suicides are acts of mental aberration, mental illness. So of course, 99% are going to be.
well, first of all, we don't know the number. I think that's important. But
We don't know, but do you see what I'm saying? So of course they're going to be.
yeah, but there is a line to be drawn about circumstances versus, I don't know, long-term mental illness, I guess. If you lose all your money, if your kids are taken away from you, if the rest of your family dies, I don't know. I mean, again, where do you draw the line? It's like, even if you kill yourself after all that stuff, you're still not, are you adjusted? I don't know. That's hard to say.
Yeah. Anyways, all right, back to the numbers. I just think that's interesting. I do, of course, the American Psychiatric Association is going to put that number there. Of course, because they're going to diagnose all of these people that have killed themselves with a psychiatric disorder, and then they're going to say 90% of people who killed themselves have a psychiatric disorder. It seems circular. It seems like a circular reasoning to me. It seems a Descartes sort of circular reasoning. Anyways,
research has found that about 90% of individuals who die by suicide experience mental illness. A number of other things may put a person at risk of suicide, including family history of suicide, substance abuse, intoxication, access to firearms, chronic medical illness, gender, history of trauma, prolonged stress, isolation, age, recent tragedy or loss, or agitation and sleep deprivation. So they list all these other things that are outside of mental illness, I guess, but it's hard to say, even if one of these other things happen to you and you kill yourself. Yeah, like I think what you're saying is there's an overlap there, and it's hard to deny that likely overlap.
Yeah.
Like access to firearms, for example. No one kills themselves because there's access to firearms. That would be either an accident, which isn't suicide, or they chose to kill themselves at the sight of a gun, which you could say is mental illness,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely, I see what you're saying. There's a likely overlap, but I guess they're drawing the line because, reported mental illness. Maybe this is a purely clinical thing.
Well, I'm saying also there's a strong case for circular reasoning. They're saying people that 90% of people that kill themselves have these things, have a mental illness, but they're defining the characteristics. One of the characteristics of the mental illness is suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts. See, so it's like if they act on it, then your conclusion proves your premise.
Right.
They say, "Oh, well, we thought they were mentally ill. We thought they were and then they did it." Or we didn't think they were suicidal. They committed suicide. Let's look back on them. And then, the conclusion proves the premise.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
So they're in to say that if you do commit suicide, it must have been due to 90% of the time, must have been due to some sort of underlying, American medicals or AMA or APA sort of underlying disease or condition or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying I don't think that's true. I don't buy that, man. I just don't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying sometimes there may have been a mental illness there. There may have been something else. There may have been something else there. To say that these individuals that killed themselves, that chose to end their life, were mentally unstable or imbalanced or had a deficiency of some sort, does a disservice to their agency. I mean, I know that's a very weird statement to say. I know it does, but I'm just saying some of these people were in full possession of their faculties and just realized the life that I'm living, the life that I am phenomenologically living, my life that I have to wake up and fucking deal with every day is not worth it. And sometimes that's a rational choice, man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Maybe I think another way of saying this is also that this is moot because we're talking about their freedom to do it, which means like the why is interesting from a, from a sociological, scientific perspective, but it's not necessary to the legality, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like why'd they do it? Okay, that's interesting, but it's it's their choice anyway. Let's hear from some of the people who wrote to us because they happened in this case in large part to agree with us. So if we hear from them, then we can kind of start breaking this down a little bit further, I think.
Do it anonymously, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Let's go ahead. This one's actually pretty in depth. I'm going to start with the first one here. They say, been there, tried that. In the end, I'm glad I failed, but at the time it seemed like the only way. But for the terminally ill, I think it should be allowed based on choice. People should be free to choose whether to suffer a medically validated condition or not. This listener didn't clarify what they think of our deviant perspective, partially because we're just now doing the episode. But
well, and my like my solicitation was a little broad, so it was just like, what are your thoughts on this? And
that's perfectly fine. They're pro physician assisted, for the terminally ill,
the right to life, and they've always had experience with suicidal thoughts and ideation and even attempts. And I'm glad they didn't succeed too. I'm very glad they didn't.
Me too. I'm just curious with that experience. I'm very curious to know what they think of their choice and freedom to have done it without being terminally ill.
Yeah. Well, and I would love to hear their position on my position, saying that it's sometimes like, I know you're happy. Like, when did you attempt that suicide? Was it when teenage years, young adult? And I would love to hear their position on my position that's saying sometimes an adult has the right. Exactly. And I'm saying an adult, sometimes like we can't judge them for that. Like, I'm not saying kill yourself, but if someone does kill themselves, maybe it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
If they want to write back and clear and like tell us now, having heard this deviant, the deviant perspective, what do they think? I would definitely support them.
Yeah. Because we 100% agree with you on your second part. Yeah. And we would love more clarification or rebuttal or insight, even insight, like change my mind. Like maybe I'm a fucking asshole. Maybe I'm being really wrong here. Maybe I have a really just fucked up perspective on this. Like, let me know.
Right. Do you have our Twitter up? Because I want to, oh wait, I just got the Twitter up because one of our readers wrote in via Twitter, I think. Is that what you said?
Oh no, we had a Facebook, 2 Facebook messages.
Yeah, I thought you said someone wrote in on Twitter though.
Oh no, I did have a response on Twitter, but the response on Twitter was very pro me. Was very pro. The response on Twitter was very pro. I said we don't have free agency to come into this world. We should have free agency to come out of it. Mm-hmm. And the response I got back was, couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, gotcha.
So the response on Twitter was I felt like it wasn't even really worth bringing up.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for kissing Joe's ass.
I'm never gonna tire of
Never,
that.
no, exactly. Um, Let's go.
I have. Hold on. Do. And try to find. Oh, here it is. This is the message. All right, here we go. I like this one a lot. So another listener said, if a person wants to die, they should be allowed to end their life. We are giving a choice whether to seek medical treatment or not, whether we will keep a child or not, whether we want to stuff a fat cheeseburger down our throats or eat rabbit food. Why is it a crime to not want to live with the condition that keeps us from living life the way we want to? What if we feel the illusion of life has been pandered to us our entire lives, when really it was just bullshit getting us to conform to society's norms? Seriously, wake up, drink your coffee, take a shit, eat some breakfast, work all day to pay some bills and buy some food, take another shit. Repeat, repeat, repeat. I mean, if someone finds that just too fucking boring, why shouldn't they have the option to whack themselves if that will make them happy? Let people do whatever the fuck they want with their lives. It's their life.
So I fundamentally agree with her. Them in many ways.
That is a very strong statement.
Yes. Almost to the point of aggressively
aggressively strong. Yeah.
To the sense that they really wanted to have us understand this repetitive nature of life. Right. But it does, it adds to it paints a picture of what they're saying.
Yeah. And I agree with them on all fundamental levels as well, obviously,
Sure. I think this comment opens the door for us to talk about this more. There's, they definitely bring up a lot of points and maybe even some questions. All right, so there's a lot to this this listener's comment. And I think by and large I don't think so. They agree with you. It's pretty pretty explicitly stated, and it's a
hard-line position, and it's
exactly in fact almost to the point of they enthusiastically agree with you, which leads me to this question. I'm not going to say it's a concern, it's a question. Is this
it can be both, Joe. You can have questions and concerns.
Is this defense of suicide, how do I say this? Is it an endorsement of someone who is prone to those thoughts or that behavior? Is this maybe you're right, maybe maybe there is no hope, go ahead and fucking kill yourself,
It's absolutely not that. It is absolutely, Joe, it's absolutely not an endorsement of. It's not an endorsement. It's not a celebration of someone in that position. I would never, if one of my friends came to me, if any of these people came to me with these suicidal thoughts, I would never say, yes, you should do that. That's not what I'm saying. I would always counsel them, and I would say, I would always counsel them to get counsel. I would always counsel them to get help, to get therapy, to talk, to try to figure this thing out, to try to figure this thing that is called life, and to try to figure that shit out, right? Mm-hmm. What I am saying is, if they do that, if they take those steps, and it doesn't work out, they go to therapy, they do the steps, they do the counseling, they fucking talk to people, and they go on for years and decades trying to make this shit work, and they're still miserable, and they're still waking up feeling this way every single fucking day. I'm just saying, if they choose to make that decision, then like, I'm not going to be happy that they chose to make that decision. It's never a happy thing. This is a death. A death is a death is a death. There's no other way around it. You know, your family member dies of natural causes. Your family member dies in murder or a car accident or whatever the fuck. However they die, you're going to be sad that they're dead. That's always going to happen. So I'm never going to be happy that someone chose to kill themselves. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I would treat it as natural causes. If they reached out, we reached out to them, and we were in conversation, and they just took an honest. And there's a lot of parameters here, man. They take an honest stock of their life and honest stock of their day to day, and they say, you know what, man, this shit isn't fucking worth it. I don't want to do it anymore. And they choose to end their life. Like, yeah, it's gonna be sad. Again, a death is a death is a death. But my thing is I'm not gonna stigmatize it. I don't think we should stigmatize it any more than if they were accidentally hit by a car, or if they were shot in a drive-by, or if they died of natural cause, or they died in their sleep, whatever. It shouldn't make a difference that they chose to end their life, like, because maybe they had a valid reason. Maybe it did suck to be them. And that's a shitty thing to say. And it's not something you don't want to imagine your loved one living that kind of life. You don't want to imagine their life being so shitty. You don't want to acknowledge that maybe it sucked to be them. Like, that's not something you ever want to say about anyone you care about. But sometimes it's fucking true, man. Like, that's just the nature of the business called life that we're in. I guess I'm not glorifying it. I'm not endorsing it. I would never tell somebody that they should do it. I would always tell somebody they shouldn't. I would always go, and everybody should always say, don't do this. There's probably another way. There's probably other shit, It's probably never, you should never encourage this kind of behavior, this suicidal behavior. I'm just saying, if they do choose to do it in spite of all of that, maybe there was a good reason.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. That the clarification, as with everything with this topic, opens up more to explore. So I'm gonna
more questions.
I'm gonna keep rolling with it.
Let's do. Yeah.
You made a couple. First, we're starting off with one distinction, which I think is important to clarify: legality versus ethics. So,
yes,
I think we're really mostly talking about ethics. We already know the legality of, right to die and just suicide in general.
Yeah.
Which is, so let's, we'll table that, but we'll focus on ethics, because there's a difference between just because something's legal doesn't mean it's ethical, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, you make, I think this is kind of paired with that distinction, is the distinction between an endorsement or an encouragement and simply not stigmatizing it. And yes. I think that's like where the point of this discussion is.
Yeah.
Is because it is stigmatized in our culture, and yet it's happening increasingly. So that's important.
And I mean, and I do agree that I do agree, and I do own that it's probably an impossible line to walk. This line between how do you not endorse or support, not endorsing or supporting someone's right to end their life, and how do you be comfortable with it or accept it as their right to do that? You know what I mean? And that's sort of it. And I completely own that. That's probably an impossible line to walk. How do you not you don't want to encourage someone to do that,
Right.
but you want to also respect their, in my opinion, respect their inalienable right to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an impossible line to walk. Like, how do you fucking
Exactly. Well, let's try to walk it.
let's try
And
to
here-
walk it.
And here's how.
Let's try to Johnny Cash that shit.
Let's try to Johnny Cash this
Let's try
line.
to Johnny Cash that shit.
Let's try to walk this line hard.
Let's try to walk this line hard. Dewey
So-
Cox. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to just reiterate as we go into the question. So
Okay.
we're talking about non-stigmatization and not endorsing, but we're also but you also mentioned that you would consider it a natural cause of death.
Yes. Yeah.
So I come to you as a friend, heart to heart, and I tell you that I'm suicidal, that I've been feeling depressed. I've been feeling it for years.
Uh-huh.
And now, like, it's getting harder to avoid those thoughts.
Yeah.
Given your perspective and your deviant opinion, what do you
I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do I do in this situation?
Either what do you tell me and what do you think to yourself, or what actions do you take? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I listen first and foremost. I just listen. I say, okay, hey, we should meet up. We should talk. You know, we should probably not grab a beer. We should probably not involve booze.
Okay, that's your first mistake. I've already killed myself at the
This is your first mistake. I wanted to meet up sober. I couldn't fucking talk to a guy. Jesus Christ. In general, booze would be a bad idea.
Yeah, agreed.
Person, yeah. Maybe with you, I'd say let's grab it. Let's grab some drinks. I would listen to them. You need to meet up, talk to them, see what's going on, see if they need to get into a fucking do some research. I would do everything I could to see if I could get them help. I would not condone. I would want to help this person, right? You don't want to see someone kill themselves. I'm not saying this is a laudable or endorsable idea for someone to kill themselves. I'm saying, so you would meet up. I would meet up with you. I would listen to you. Let's talk about what's going on, and then go from there. And maybe it would be like, oh, hey, have you seen a therapist? Hey, here's the therapist. Or maybe it would just be like, oh, hey. Or there could be a myriad of possible avenues for this shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would meet up with you and I would try to get you help. I would try to help you out of that bind, of that fucking a ditch that you're in. That very, 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 very deep ditch that I've been in myself. I understand, and then that you're in now, right? And let's say it didn't happen. Let's say like 3 months from then, you wound up killing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be sad? Fuck yeah, I'd be sad. I would not be happy about it. There's no, of course I wouldn't be fucking happy about it. But I would feel, I would feel like, all right, well, I mean, I tried to help them, and maybe Joe was just going through something that I couldn't fucking understand. And is it sad? Yes. But is it your decision? Yes.
Right. But it's also a natural cause. So
it's a natural cause because it's your decision. It's a natural cause. It's not murder. It's not something outside of yourself doing it. It's you doing it. Look, suicide is just like cancer, man. Cancer is something that happens internally. Suicide is something that happens internally. It's the body killing itself.
Okay.
It's the person killing itself. Is it sad? It's absolutely sad. Is it tragic? It's absolutely fucking tragic. Are there things that could have prevented it? Yes. All of these things are true for any sort of self-inflicted death. All of these things are true. It's sad, it's tragic, it's preventable, or there's treatment. Yes. But sometimes those things don't fucking work.
That's interesting, because I was totally going to push back on the natural cause, because I was like, well, what if there's something that could have been done and it wasn't inevitable? And yeah, and you're saying there very well could have been, but it still makes it a natural death.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying yes, there's absolutely interventions that can happen, just like with other natural causes.
Right.
There are absolutely interventions that can take place. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes chemo works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Right?
So that suicide is
but I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying sometimes sometimes the only way I know how to say it is sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes you look at that person's life, you look at what they've been going through, what they've been like, blah, what they've. Sometimes you look at it and look, it sucks and it's tragic and it could have been preventable, like any other natural cause of death. Again, but it's sometimes it makes sense.
So given that, I'm going to ask a two-part question that I know you're going to have a strong opinion about.
I hope so. Okay, I'm ready for it.
Given that suicide, the only thing that separates suicide from
do I need to answer the question in the form of a question like Jeopardy?
No, please don't. It'll make it so confusing.
Is this tragedy Jeopardy?
Tragedy Jeopardy. The only thing.
What is the bubonic plague?
Let's take the plague, for example. The only thing that separates a suicide from a death from something like that, where it's like, okay, you're definitely fucking dying, is that this was self-inflicted. It was a choice. So is there an obligation to myself and my earthly relationships, especially I want to emphasize children, or wife, children, whatever. Did I have an obligation to try harder or try something else to not kill myself? And do I have an obligation to my loved ones to not kill myself, to stay alive, especially if they're depending on me?
That's a great question. It's a great question.
Because that's, the word selfish is it always comes into play with suicides. And that's, I think, the root of where it comes from.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. My answer is, man, if we get a bunch of listeners, my answer is no. You don't have an obligation to them. My answer is no. My answer is a firm fucking no.
All right.
You're not going to be any good to them if you're living in that state. If you're living in that state, I don't know, pushback, man, like draw it out of me. But my answer is no. My answer is a firm no. It's no. You don't have an obligation to your family members, to your children, or to no. If you're living in that much of a state of misery, no, it's your life, man. It's your if you're not enjoying it, and look, it sucks, and it's an injustice to your kids, and it's and they're getting a shit deal, and yeah, I mean they're getting fucked over for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair to them. Definitely, it's definitely not fair to them, right? And I think there's mitigating circumstances. It depends. It depends on how deep and intense and sincere the pain is, man. Um, as to why you want to kill yourself, as to why you want to get out, right? If you want to get out because raising kids is too hard, no, fuck you. That's not a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get out because of some sort of intense and like internal emotional pain, maybe more valid, right? But
Right.
your desire to get out has to overweigh your obligation to your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I initially said no. I initially said fuck no, but no, I think it's a utilitarian cost benefit analysis. I that's my answer. I think it's a cost benefit analysis. It's what can you do more good than harm by staying alive,
Hmm.
or if you feel, or if you're like suicidal ideation, or if your phenomenological life is so fucking torturous that you're gonna do more harm to these kids than good by staying alive, then that's a different story.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I want to push back, but I
Please push back.
I agree.
Because
I mean, it's
what I just said was so fucked up, man. I just said the most fucked up thing possible. Because you want me to push back on my own argument? I'll push back on my own argument. If you
well,
want.
if you think of something that's like a counterpoint to what you just said, yeah, I mean, be honest with this. But
No, I was gonna go sensational. I was gonna go. It would have made sense. All right, but
I'm just
no,
digesting it.
I stand by that. I think if your reasons, if like let's say you have a family and you're struggling with this shit, and if your pain of staying alive is going to be greater than the benefit, if your pain is going to be greater than the benefit of your impact in your kids' lives, then yes, suicide. If your pain is manageable and the good that you can do in your kids' lives outweighs the pain that you might feel, then you should stay alive. That's a utilitarian, that's just, again, straight cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I look at this whole suicide thing, is a very utilitarian cost benefit analysis sort of thing. If the good outweighs the pain, then you should do it. If the pain outweighs the good, then then go the suicide route.
Right.
And I think that's the way that a lot of people aren't. I think that's how suicide isn't looked at. It's looked at properly so as a mental health crisis, and we should raise awareness, and we should do this. And I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying at the same time, it's also a utilitarianism, cost benefit sort of analysis thing. But sometimes, man, yeah, the pain just outweighs the good.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very reasonable thing to acknowledge. And I thought that was a very deviant thing to acknowledge. That's why we have this topic. Look, sometimes the pain outweighs the good.
Right.
And you have to be old enough to know that. You can't be a young kid. You can't, I don't know what the exact age range is, but I don't know what the age range is. But at some point, you're wise enough and experienced enough to be able to make that utilitarian sort of, assessment,
Mm-hmm.
that the pain outweighs the good, and this isn't worth it. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's fine. And it ties back to the right to die. Because the argument is the selfishness, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's someone killing themselves, they're being selfish.
Right.
And they're leaving behind people, and people care about them. People love them. And, oh, what are they doing to the people they left behind? Right?
Mm-hmm.
This ties into the right to die argument as well. Because that's a huge thing against a lot of assisted suicide or pulling the plug on people. Like, people don't want to pull the plug on their loved ones because of the pain it's going to cause them to see their loved one go. They don't give a fuck about the fact that their loved one's a goddamn fucking vegetable.
Right.
You know, they just don't want it. They don't want to see them die. So it's a reverse selfish. It's a reverse selfishness. Same thing with all of this suicide stuff. It's, if the utilitarian argument makes sense, if it's more painful to live than it is to die, cool. But there's other people, there's other family members. Every suicide is so selfish. What about the people they left behind? What about the people this? What about the people that? I loved him or her so much, blah, blah, blah. It's never about the person that actually killed themselves. It's always about how much of these other people are fucking suffering because now they have to live without their loved one. Well, their loved one was not having a good time on this earth. Their loved one was having a shitty fucking experience on this earth.
Okay, so
you're being selfish, and you're saying, I wanted them to keep living this miserable, torturous existence just because I like to see them at the 7-Eleven every fucking Saturday night.
Yeah. All right. Let's go in a little different direction because we've established the utilitarian side.
Okay.
I don't know. There's nowhere else really to go there. For me, I don't have anything else to ask.
No, that's
But I do. So this is about stigma and stigmatization, much like stereotypes, is something that can be criticized, but often exists for a reason. Sometimes, and sometimes not.
Okay.
Stereotypes exist for a reason. Stigmatization happened for a reason. So we have implications to these arguments, and I'm just going to bring up a few. And we're just going to consider, and we can maybe even this can be our question to the people.
Let's end on these. I feel like we should end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the implications of this deviant opinion that you should be free and you should be ethically cleared to kill yourself, if you, with all considerations made as a mature adult? What are the implications as a society? Loved ones missing from families. What are the implications? And this is a callback to the earlier part of the episode. Firearms. If people are shooting themselves, that stigma's gone now. They are free to kill themselves. What does that mean as a society with weapons?
Okay.
I had another one. I guess even mental health, what are the implications of this and trying to help people who are mentally ill without, and I know we've made clear the distinction between endorsing and trying to remove the stigma, but as far as the mentally ill people with suicidal thoughts, like, what does this mean for them? Those are just a few things, and we could, you can keep going.
Yeah.
We're not gonna solve the world's problems like in the next 5 minutes, but
no. Those are all great. Those are all great questions I want to pose to our listeners, and I would say, I would just add, if you take the premise that we didn't have a choice coming into this world, but we do have a choice and what we do when we're in this world, how far does that choice or that right extend? Right? We had no agency coming into this world, but we have agency in everything we do when we're alive. So how far does that agency extend? And that's a really broad question, but it applies to the topic tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So I would post that one as the last one for sure. And everything else we talked about too. Debate us. Like I've said some shit, man. You can, listeners, please call me out. Please call me out. I would love to debate you. Again, we're not going to Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or fucking Bill O'Reilly you or whatever. We're gonna have an honest, rational, calm conversation.
Yeah.
If you tune in. So
and it's absolutely controversial enough topic that it warrants any other thoughts, just because it's important too. It's like
yeah. And it warrants strong emotions. Like I grant that too. It warrants strong emotions. So I mean, if you want to call and be mad as fuck, like I get that. This topic warrants strong emotions.
Yeah,
for sure. It's not an easy topic to talk about. So
yeah, it's not only important. It's important because suicide is prevalent as an issue, but also because this is about like human freedom, and that's like what makes this intriguing. Is like this is really the ultimate freedom.
It really is.
If you're going to say you don't agree with it, that you have to back that up too.
Yeah. No, you're right. This really is the ultimate, the most free a person can be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It really is, man. It really, really fucking is. So, yeah. So we've said that. So we've thrown that out there.
Yeah. Oscars, this is not.
It's much better than our Oscars episode. Much better. We did our Oscars episode out of obligation, guys. We just had to do it. Yeah, so please fucking respond. Please hit us up. Again, like we always say, we want to build a community. We really want to build a community with you guys. So we're on Twitter at Podcast Deviant. We're on email at deviantpodcast1.gmail.com. We're on Facebook. You can search us there. So just get in touch with us any way you can. Respond, yell at us, argue. It's all anonymous. We're never going to mention you by name, unless you want us to. But otherwise, we'll assume it's anonymous. But just respond, man.
And if you've got a personal story, let us know and come on the show,
Yeah.
Because this is interactive.
Yeah. That too. If you want to be a guest, you can always be a guest for sure. Yeah. We definitely we want you to be a guest. We desperately want you guys to be guests. So yeah, respond on any of those platforms, anonymous or not. If you want to be a guest, like send us a long form email. Let us know you want to be a guest, or just tweet us and say you want to be a guest. We'll get in touch with you. It's very simple to be a guest on this show, but that will happen. So look for us on all those platforms, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, Podbean. Give us reviews. Especially on iTunes, just give us 5-star reviews. It helps us on the business end. We don't really care about just give us 5 stars. If it says like leave a comment, you can say fuck you. That's fine. As long as it's a 5-star review with the fuck you comment, we're okay with it, right? I guess other than that, like please support us. We're trying to support you. We're trying to be there for you guys too. Other than that, man, like I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll be back next week with, another good deviant topic. I guess that's it, Joe, right?
That's it. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Thank you even more for writing in. I'm thanking you in advance because I know you're going to. So
You guys will tune in. We know you will. All right. Thanks, Deviants. Have a fucking great week. We'll see you next week.
good night.